Whoa! Welcome to the What's Up podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Carter. I'm here with my co-host Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, bell notification button. Like. Don't forget to like. We like likes. Yeah, I mean, it always helps us grow the podcast. You know what else helps us grow the podcast, though, is telling your friends and family about us. And in this case, go find the journalist that you know, whether it be a writer or a television or I don't care. Just tell some journalist, news person, local or otherwise, about us. Because
Yeah, your cousin that's an influencer, tell them too.
I guess technically that's part of the media these days. So yeah, tell them too. Yeah. The reason we're saying that is this week we're kicking off something new. This is the first episode for the month of June, and so this is in June. We're starting something new, and we're going to try doing themed months. So there is a couple. I mean, we've seen, I guess, the reasons behind this one. As you can see, it's just the two of us. Matt's taking a step back and have a baby. Don't know how much he'll be involved in the podcast, so we decided, along with that change, we would change some things up. It's just two of us now, and sometimes, you know, for whatever reason, we have things going on, and I just don't think it would be as fun a podcast as a one-man show.
Exactly. When you're watching this, I'm in Utah, of all places.
I know, right? Which is where I'm normally at. And so, but I know in June and July, I may have some trips for work. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to record these early. We're also going to record some older movies, and we're going to do categories. And if you want to get in on what categories or what movies we're watching, you can join up on Patreon. Otherwise, just keep listening. We always appreciate the listens, but if you want to join up on Patreon, you can be able to vote on the categories that will be upcoming for the months that we don't do new movies. And then, as always, in Patreon, you'll be able to vote on what movies we're going to actually review. So with that, this month, for the first of this month in June, we're doing All the President's Men. It was released April 9th, 1976. Oh, and I forgot to go with that. It is the month of classics for June. Jesus. Leave it to me. But again, April 9th, 1976, All the President's Men. It was written by Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, and William Goldman. It was directed by Alan J. Pakula. It stars Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman, Jack Warden, Martin Balsam, Hal Holbrook, Jason Robards, Jane Alexander, Meredith Baxter, and Stephen Collins. Oh, and don't forget Ned Beatty. We got to put that guy in there.
Right?
There's quite a few people in here that, like, I mean, even like F. Murray Abraham, like these guys, it's amazing to me, like when you watch like old movies like this, that you see people that are now like either have left us, unfortunately, or they're like seasoned actors. Like, for example, Stephen Collins, who plays Hugh Sloan, who's one of like the people that they're trying to get information on from, you know, based on all of the Watergate stuff. But like now he's like that grizzled old actor that plays like the mom, the dad, or like the grandpa. But back, he was like a kid in this movie. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's good stuff. And it was fun to see like Jason Robards. Like I always think of him from Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, and as the asshole old man, and you know, on the other side of the court case. But anyway,
yeah,
it was fun. So the breakdown of this movie: the Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein uncover the details of the Watergate scandal that lead to President Richard Nixon's resignation. Yeah, and it's based off a book they wrote, right? Like, kind of, or at least
it's based off of kind of real events and kind of a book.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So yeah, let's dive in. We do have some topics. Let's just jump right out. Alec, you brought up the topic of identity politics. I'm very interested. We might as well just kick this shit off with the heavy stuff. So let's figure it out.
So I'd seen this movie a couple times before. I think I watched it in school, sophomore year of high school or something like that. This should be required watching for everybody in the United States. Reason being is I don't know if this was intended. This movie came out almost 2 decades before I was born, and the Watergate scandal did happen 2 decades before I was born. But an underlying theme through this is entirely, I'm a good Republican. I'm a good Republican, right? For those who don't know, President Nixon was a member of the Republican Party. And so people who even could see that he was guilty, that he was involved with this plot, he was more involved with the cover up, his entire administration was involved, would still say, I'm a good Republican. But, right? And identity politics has only gotten worse to where it does not matter if you fall just a little bit on the left-hand side or if you're a far left nut job, you're put in the same box. Vice versa, if you fall a little bit on the right side or you're a right-wing hick, you're put in the same exact box. And so it's caused this almost divide to where you hear in this past election, oh, I don't like this candidate, but he's not a Republican or he's not a Democrat, so I voted for him anyway. It's, I don't want your side to win, so I'm going to fight very, very hard for your side to lose rather than actually care about what I'm voting on. And it even comes out when they, first publish the article and they kind of get slammed for not having everything perfect. It's, I guess, the people over the Washington Post aren't Republican or aren't, supporting their president. And it is a huge and divisive kind of way to run politics. It stems from our broken, absurd two-party system.
Sure.
But I watching this again after, quite a few years and after what we've experienced over the last couple of elections, I was like, dude, everybody needs to watch this movie once a year and see how ridiculous it is, because it's only gotten worse since the 70s.
Yeah.
To where you're willing to defend terrible, illegal, awful behavior simply because you don't like the other candidates' platform, policies, or even, the fact that they're running for the opposite party. How dare they? So I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was raised in a very conservative Republican home, and I don't know. It's tough because I live with a very, very liberal Democrat, and she has no compunction about how liberal she is. And I think that's great. And I'm more moderate than I am anything else. Like, I see strengths on both being, liberal and conservative in certain ways and areas, but I think, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, I think we need to, and this sounds extreme, but I think we need to burn it to the ground and rebuild it, because
we should have burned to the ground in the 70s. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
it's way past the burning it down phase.
Sure. And and this is like one of those things where, like, this time frame and Watergate was really where we started to see the exposure of, and we'll talk, this is our next topic, but it's a great lead into political corruption and the fact that politicians, it stopped being about the people a long time ago. And this was when we started to see that greed and keeping your job and maintaining a control over the structure of our country was the most important thing. And it had nothing to do with the will of the people or taking care of the nation as a whole. And it's amazing to me that people that talk about, I'm going to vote for this person or that person, because I'm like, you do understand that they don't give a shit about you. Like, not even an inkling of a shit. They care about power and controlling the world to a certain degree, because regardless of how much we're loved, hated, whatever, we still have the strongest controlling interest in the world powers. It just is what it is. And look, I have a family member that has an in the government area. I'm not going to go where or how,
Who's your source?
I know. I've told you guys this offline who it is and some of the things that they, but there's certain times we'll start conversations and he'll go, I can't keep talking. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. And so he's told me like the structures of war, even in our day and age, it has nothing to do with like war isn't war. We're not talking about like even in the times of this movie where and it's not even so much that, like, for example, like, in here, it's probably neither here nor there, but it fits with what we're talking about. For example, the current one of the current wars that's going on, where we had, like,
there went JJ.
What
he
the
went
hell
dark.
just happened? That was crazy. I'm back.
I thought the government was coming after you.
I know, right? They were like, "Fuck, this guy's doing it." No,
I was waiting for the voice changer to come on.
I know, right? JJ has been eliminated. That's scary shit. Like my computer just went dark. Anyway, yeah. No, but like currently, like with for example, like if a superpower, one of the major countries out there was like, well, we want to take over this smaller country and annex them into our country. It isn't about whether they could or couldn't. Like all of the superpowers of the world, and I'm not including Russia in that because they used to be a superpower, but the truth is they're not anymore. Because if they were a superpower, Ukraine wouldn't have stood a chance in this war that they have. And Ukraine's been holding out for the most part because from my understanding of it and things that I've been told from other people is Russia is outdated as far as their military technology. Like they have shit that was powerful in the 80s, but nobody has that shit anymore. So it's not like they're that scary when what makes them scary is their willingness to use nuclear weapons. That's what makes them scary. But let's say, for example, we wanted to take over a small country. We wouldn't just go to war. We would threaten war. We would go to the UN and say, we're going to take this over. So how do we need to negotiate this issue? And what would happen is we would negotiate with them instead of saying, okay, we're going to take over this country. They're going to pay us, right, X amount of dollars to not take over this country. They pay us so much money that they're technically part of the United States at this point. Now, that's just an example, but that's what wars don't happen because of we want to take over anymore or we want to expand. It's money. That's where, and it's not about making it. It's you pay us so that we don't make you look ridiculous in the world media, right? Because we'll just walk all over you. And then we also get to keep the fact that we don't look like monsters because we just marched through your border and took over. But you can't.
They're hiding communists.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just crazy. And I mean, that's a very watered down. There's so many more details but we just don't have time in this format to talk about it. We could talk about it in a different one. If you guys want to hear about it, go to Patreon or send us an email at host@whatsalready.com. But I mean, it's crazy. And I didn't know that until I'm sitting in a room with this family member and they're talking about like, war is such an outdated platform for the way that the world works now. And he goes, and it's these powerful countries get together and go, here's what's going to happen. And it happens because it keeps people from having to go to insane amounts of war. And then you have things like the Afghan war and the Iraqi war that have completely and other, motives behind them. And that's why they go to war. It's for a show and it's for political clout, right? And money, as you say. Or yeah, anyway. So there's a lot of different reasons that things happen, but like this shows that level of corruption to the point that our politicians don't give a shit about us. And that's the problem is when this country was founded, it was founded on the premise of the people are what matter because they were leaving European corruption, these other areas that had come that they had been a part of that were where we are now, right? Like our politicians don't give a shit. They care about power and they care about money and they care about keeping their job like the rest of us do.
And it's telling, like it kind of glosses over a little bit in the outro where it kind of sums up everything that happened in the events. But Nixon wasn't apologetic that he did this. He was apologetic that he got caught.
Yeah.
That was the issue. I mean, and he never thought he would because corruption's been going on at this point for about 100 years.
Yep.
And everybody's been getting away with it. So he even wasn't going to resign
Yeah.
That was the platform that he was on. He was keeping his job. That was it. Move on. I got caught. Give me my slap on a wrist and let's go. And it's telling that, it didn't even click in his mind that, oh, I fucked up. It was
Mm-hmm.
no, it's like, man, this is really gonna hurt my, image to on the wall of presidents or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, this is just the worst.
Yeah.
And it, it just kind of shows how out of touch a lot of politicians are.
Yep. And I could just imagine the conversations too with the people that he had set it up and be like, why'd these fuckers use flashlights, you morons?
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude. You can't you just use one flashlight, but instead of everyone having one and everybody seeing it? Or how do we not get like this apartment building? Everybody that's in it should be on our side, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
you want anyway, it's just crazy to me. Because like you said, he wasn't apologetic at all. Like if you watch his speeches, even his resignation, like it was all about defending himself.
Yeah.
And this isn't my fault. It's like, fuck.
Yeah. It's not my fault. You are all making a huge mistake.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm so paranoid that I literally recorded everyone
Yeah.
around me. But, I'm not a crook. Fuck off. Get out of here.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But, and that governmental corruption across the board leads to another topic that's very hot for me. So I'm glad that you brought it up because I would have if you hadn't. And that's journalism in general. And when I say journalism, this one, obviously, we're talking about a newspaper, the Washington Post. That's where these guys were. And the Washington Post has broken quite a few big stories. It's not like, I think if we're talking journalism, I want to get this out of the way before I just shit on the entire institution of journalism. And that is, there are still some publications that work as true journalists should, right? And that is an unbiased reporting of the facts and let us as human beings, hopefully some level of intelligence, decide what we believe and how we take those facts and utilize them within our lives, right? That's what journalism is designed to be and what it should be in an incorruptible format, right? You report facts, not belief or ideas, right? And if it is, it needs to be stated clearly, this is an opinion.
Yeah.
This is not fact. The problem with journalism, in my opinion, now is there are no facts that are ever shared truly. I firmly believe, Jesus, they're after me, dude. I'm telling you, I'm in trouble. I firmly believe that if there are, I believe that probably individual journalists, there are some that are left that are trying to do the right things. But journalism as a whole is just a big business. The instant that we allowed that our government was smart enough to realize that we need to make it so that journalistic institutions can make money, can be for profit, that institution, because money corrupts everything. I'm sorry. It just does. The corruption bled into journalism. And now we have there's no such thing as journalistic integrity, in my opinion.
Absolutely not. And it's been kind of a constant battle that nobody pays attention to, because you could go back to the turn of the century, 1900s, when you had two different newspapers and it was billionaire moguls who were running them. They decided what to print. They decided the story. They decided what was true or not, and they push it out. And there's been this constant battle between actually reporting on facts versus, like you said, printing on an opinion. And I think this movie does a great job of it, right? You have Woodward and Bernstein as your journalists who are going out and getting the story. And it was kind of funny because I could just see, the pushing, right? They do a great job of push. Tell me what you know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to figure this out. And I can't see that happening a whole lot anymore, except for an occasion here or there. And typically I feel like that would end in a buyout where someone's like, hey, here's some hush money, shut up and go away.
Mm-hmm.
Which never came up in this. There was no offer of a bribe. And that was the one thing where I was like, I can't see that happening today, where no government official would, or anybody would be like, hey, here's this. But it also goes up the ladder, right? Because you have their immediate boss who's on their side. And then it comes to a point where even the head of the newspaper, what's his, Robards,
Yeah.
and he's on their side too with his non-denial denial. But it's that same mentality and same attitude, top to bottom in this paper. It's even where he's on the phone with the one guy and he's like, no, I don't want to print that you were in her apartment. I just want to know what you said. Which is a great line. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to know what you said while you were there. Like, I'm not going to rat you out in the paper as long as you tell me what you said while you're there. And it was, the papers had this almost blackmail capacity to where they were, I don't want to say equal footing, but close enough that they could punch up and be okay.
Yeah.
Now I have a feeling that a lot of the politicians who are the corrupt ones have stake in the papers and the journalist thing. So, you know, anytime, I don't know, I'm going to pick on somebody, the Washington Times or whatever, CNN, any Fox News goes to print something or post something, they are going to first have to get it cleared by their bosses in the government. Which is then, oh no, you can't print this, you can't print this, you can't print this, put this in instead. And so it's just lost, like you said, lost the journalistic integrity.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, it's crazy to me to think about, because like you have CNN, you have Fox News, you have, I don't remember the other side of the whole thing, but like for example, like and they all have their leanings, right? Like we all know Fox News is a very much right wing. I hate using the term Republican because I do try not to like label it, even though we have a very broken two-party system. I try not to like lean into like Republican, Democrat, corruption. It's right wing, left wing for me. Like extremism is what we're talking about. But the problem is Fox is owned by a very right wing group of people. And so they report in ways that make right wing politics look good. And really, because then they get all these freaking, like you said, the hicks out there watching their Republican right wing party affiliation news that makes them feel good about their belief system and what they voted for and things like that. And on the flip side, you have the left wing and the liberal side that have their news media. And that's how the media to me is so frustrating, because it's like, look, if all of you morons would just report down the middle and report facts, then we as human beings, at least the majority, I believe, maybe I want the majority I want to believe will then take those facts and create an opinion or a belief system around truth and facts. Whereas now I don't even watch the news and I read it very little or in the word, because I either have to not at all or have to read literally everything and then try to find some middle ground as an intelligent human being that says, I know this side and this side are lying in some way, shape, or form, or they're changing the facts, or they're tweaking them, or they're manipulating the facts to fit a certain narrative. I have to find the narrative in the middle so that I can at least have some semblance of truth within all of that, right? And so it's really tough. And for me as a human being, it's really frustrating, because I would love to find a publication or a news media outlet that would like just say, here is what happened, and that's it. Not say, here's what happened, this caused this caused that, this is this problem. Fuck off. You don't know that shit. You're making it up. That's what could happen. That's what might have happened. But that's your opinion. There is no factual evidence of what you're talking about. All I want is, here's the story. Here's fact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make what you will of that, right? Now I get to believe and do. But the problem is that doesn't make people money. Fear and outrage, and those are the things that create profit for news outlets. It just is. It's why there's so many freelance journalists out there that are writing shitty articles and fucking clickbait titles and headlines. It's fucking bullshit. Like, I hate it. I hate a lot of things. The media is up there. Like, today's media is up there for me.
Easily at the top.
Yeah.
Because it's, here's what happened. This is why we need to do this, this, and this, and this is why you need to vote for this, and this person. Otherwise, this, and this will happen. And if you let them get into office, then you're going to be experiencing this, and this.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think you and I are going to disagree on we think most people would form their own opinion. I think most people like this. In the sense that, don't tell me what to do, or don't let me do it. I just tell me what to think. Just tell me who to vote for. I don't want any part of it.
Sure.
And so, I mean, it leads into where they're like, okay, well, you two guys take this group of people, we'll take this group of people, and we'll make them fight against each other while we rake in a lot of money and go out to parties together.
Mm-hmm.
To where I don't even know if they changed and started going down the middle, if people would adjust or if they would rail against it, so to speak, because now it's like, well, I used to watch Fox News because they agreed with everything I agreed. Now they're just reporting facts. I'm not going to watch them anymore. Or, CNN has changed. They've sold out to, the right wing news group. And now they're not promoting the stuff that they used to. And all these things they would, because it's almost like, put in a box. Now the box is open. Well, I want to go back in the box.
Yeah.
Like, I like the box.
Sure.
So it's a whole sticky wicket. But I'm the same boat. I don't watch the news, despise the media.
Well, and I don't disagree with you. Like, I think especially the sheeple out there, like, they want to be told what to do, right? But I think if, as an institutional challenge, we forced journalistic integrity, and there's always going to be people that try to sneak their way around it. But if we could have the majority of the major news outlets they had to report facts, go back to, because that's what they used to do. There were laws that didn't allow certain types of journalism to make money. That's why you had like the National Enquirer that everybody looked at it in the grocery store line when I was a kid going, what a fucking ridiculous. It was entertainment news, right?
Yeah.
National Enquirer. Now I can't tell the difference between the New York Post and the National Enquirer. Because it's all manipulated to be, because the New York Post, I'm sorry, is a very right-wing publication when it comes to how it forms its opinions and shares its news. That's just, it's no different than, CNN or, being or NBC being more of a left wing and Fox News being more of a right wing. And I mean, they all have their affiliations now. When I was a kid, they weren't allowed to, especially newspapers. They had to report facts. Now they could say, here's the facts of the case. Based on our opinion, this is what should be happening or what you should believe or do, right? But they had to preface it. There were rules around that. And they couldn't do it for profit. Like, they could do it it was like they were nonprofit machines back in the day, because they shouldn't be able to make money on being able to manipulate the minds of the people. Anyway, those used to be the rules. Obviously, that's not the way it is now. They've been gone for a long time. And I don't disagree with you. I think people will be very upset because they want to be told, and they want to be able to look to, and more than being able to be told what to do, they want someone to blame. Oh, I believe this way because Fox told me to. It's Fox's fault that I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
That's what it really is, subconsciously, in my opinion, is that people want a scapegoat. And right now they can say, well, I believe the way I believe because that's what Fox News told me to believe. Instead of, no, I believe what I believe because I'm a fucking asshole. And you know what? If you are, fine. Own that shit.
Yeah.
I'm a dickhead. Somewhat of an anarchist to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, dude, if I had my way, I would.
Dude,
if I didn't have to pay bills.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, like, if I had my way, every single politician in office in our country would be booted out, and we would re-nominate, re-vote every single politician in our country, and we would revamp the entire process of what that looks like. Fuck you, super PACs and money. They don't get money.
Yeah.
Period. You don't get to fund TV ads. And if you shit on your opponent in one way, on live media, on news, and you're done. Kick your ass out. See, now they really
don't like you.
Now they really hurt me. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I would redo the whole system. I believe in our government. Let me rephrase. I believe in our system. I believe to a degree, and I believe in the Constitution. I love our country. I think it's wonderful. But it has, over the last few hundred years, couple hundred years, really
it's not
lost
for the
its
people
way.
by the people anymore. It's for the government by the government.
Yeah, we've lost our way. Period. So anyway, I always like to get that out. I love my country, but I also am not blind to the fact that shit's broken because we've allowed it to be manipulated, and we, the people, have no power anymore. We just don't. Period. Sorry, hate to break it to you. We don't. We're more of an oligarchy now than we are a republic.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a frightening thing to say. I might fucking end up. If I disappear, it wasn't my choice, folks. I'm just telling you. So with that said, let's talk about these actors, because obviously there's a lot of actors in this movie that a lot of people will recognize their faces or know who they are from other movies, but this movie is obviously carried by two guys, and that's Dustin Hoffman, Robert Redford. And to me, when I think back on, I have some opinions about Robert Redford, but I'm a little bit biased because my father-in-law knew him. So, and then, but Dustin Hoffman has always been one of my favorite actors, period. And I think this is
one of his first movies.
Yeah. And this is I think this is a movie that really kicked him off in a way that people were like, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah, because it's hard to share a screen with Robert Redford and get noticed.
Yeah.
And you remember Dustin Hoffman as much, if not in some cases more, during scenes than you do Redford.
Yeah.
And this is, at this time, Redford's at the top of his game.
Yeah.
He is the guy.
Yep.
And you have kind of a unknown actor coming in and sharing the screen. And he just kills it, Dustin Hoffman does. Yeah. And really kind of opens up into him becoming one of the better method actors in history.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He'd done The Graduate up to this point, which is really what launched him, was The Graduate. But then he did Midnight Cowboy, which it's a weird fucking movie. And I think that kind of set him back a little bit, Midnight Cowboy, even though it was a very popular, like, critical movie. It was a weird ass movie. But then this one put him back on that. And then from this one, when he did Kramer versus Kramer, Jesus, it was over. Because then he did Kramer versus Kramer, Tootsie, Death of a Salesman, Rain Man. Yeah, I mean, from then on, he was like a superstar. But I think this was the first real, because I'm with you. Like, in my opinion, he outdoes Robert Redford in this movie. And this is Robert Redford, like you said, at his peak. Like, this is, everybody knew who Robert Redford was. And like, he was established. This guy was a star at this point. He was the one that was meant to carry this movie. But I think Hoffman stole this movie from him. Like, that's, every time Hoffman was on the screen, that's who I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
Even this time.
And it's crazy to think, because Hoffman's shorter.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more twitchy in his acting. It doesn't seem like he would be the guy to steal a movie, and he does.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this time in Hollywood, where they're still kind of exiting a little bit of the golden age. And, you know, your protagonist is the tall guy. He's the good looking one, blonde hair and everything like that. And Hoffman comes in, and every single time it's the way he acts and the way he moves and the way he delivers his lines, to where he takes over a ton of this movie. Yeah.
He's just more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He's just more interesting to me. And so that's why, like, Yeah, this movie, even watching it this time, and I've seen this movie so many times, but this time I just cannot get over because he doesn't like even in the like he's got the long hair, he looks a little rough, like, and you can tell like a lot of people in the newsroom, and I don't know if that's indicative of I'm sure to a certain degree, like that's how people felt about Bernstein, Carl Bernstein at the time, like that he was this kind of oddball hippie type, you know what I mean? But like he played him so well, Hoffman, that I was like, okay, I get why most of the people in the newsroom are like, fuck, it's okay. You know,
Even Bernstein's working.
yeah, exactly. Well, and it's funny because like Woodward was like, and you know, in this, he's like, God, he snaked his way into my story, right? Like, and so it was really interesting. That I think that's one of my favorite parts of this movie is the human dynamic of these two writers that are at each other because they don't want to work together, but they want to tell this crazy story of what just happened in the most outlandish corruption story within our government, which to be honest was kind of a low level of corruption I mean, okay,
Yeah,
so
compared to what has happened.
yeah, I mean they're
and what does
stashing some
happen.
funds away to pay some people and they're bugging people's houses and well, no shit they are, dude. Come on.
Yeah, now they got us to carry our own bugs around with us everywhere we go.
Exactly. Yeah, don't even get me fucking started on that shit. I talk about that all the time. People are like, nah, if your phones don't fuck off. Every time I talk about something, all of a sudden the fucking sales articles pop up on my damn phone. I'm like, you're full of shit. This doesn't listen to me. And then the crazy chick over here on my counter that talks to me too. Like, I'll randomly have one of those yellow ring notifications, and I'm like, play my notifications. She'll be like, this and this, I can tell you, fuck off. You were eavesdropping, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. Which, whatever. I give up a level of my freedom because I like being able to tell her what to do. But
yeah,
and I love my cell phone, but don't fucking bullshit me. They listen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm being listened to. Fuck off. That's why I worry every time my screen goes black. That shit.
Which has happened a lot in this episode and never before.
I did it one time on the last episode we recorded, and that was it. But now it's like 4 times. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? To the point that like I'm moving my mouse constantly to try to keep it from happening. Anyway, yeah, I love Dustin Hoffman, but Robert Redford, like I struggle because I hear story. My father, he was an asshole. Like,
oh yeah.
As a human being, like, and there's some biases there, right? Like Robert Redford has some Utah ties, and my father-in-law's a contractor and worked in some areas, and so but they've interacted before, and then there's interactions where he's seen like how he treats the service industry people, and like apparently it's not very good. So I've always had this like. Ever since I met my father, like we've talked about because he knows that I watch a lot of movies and I'm a big fan of all that shit. So he's always talking about Robert Redford's a dick, but he's a great actor. You can't take away from the fact that the man can act.
Acting, but it almost seems like a trend, right? Where in a lot of cases, your best actors are kind of dicks.
Yeah.
At least in the older Hollywood. Now with a little bit more. How to say it, but exposure or can't hide away, and you only comes out in interviews. People can share interactions that go viral super quick. Maybe we have actors and actresses who are watching what they say more, but old timey Hollywood, oh no.
No.
If you were king of the castle, you could be the biggest fucking dick you wanted to, and who's gonna say anything?
Nobody, because you're making them millions,
right? I mean, the most you could do if someone had a complaint is tell their friends, but
yeah,
that only goes so far, and it doesn't spread, and so you don't get that kind of image smear, that you would today. And so I think people have to be more careful. But oh yeah, Robert Redford, great actor, terrible human.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this too, like the older he's gotten, like a lot of times actors, like the older they get, the better they get. Like their performances get a little more subtle, they get a little more nuanced. Robert Redford, I think, at least in my opinion, the older he's gotten, he's not as good as he was.
Yeah.
Back in this time, right? The 60s and 70s eras. Like you watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, fuck, he's great, right? You watch this movie, he's amazing. the Defenders and the old TV show. Like, he was in it for one episode, but he's great. Like, there's a lot of things that he did. The Way We Were, The Sting, Gatsby, these movies that he did in the 70s and shit that got him to where he was who he is. Amazing. Even as far back, like, you know, as early as like The Last Castle, The Horse Whisperer, he was good. But as you got a little further in, like, I watch him in Winter Soldier and I'm like, you're not the man you used to be,
No.
buddy.
He should have retired.
Yeah.
And give it up.
Just keep on doing, keep producing, right? Like, stick with your production shit, make your money off Sundance, go away though. Because he's one that he feels more wooden the older he got. But like in this movie, he's great, right? There's all that passion, there's the nuance in his performance, from him more than anybody, he seems like at first he's like, I need to write this story, but then he gets more and more like, I feel like I shouldn't be writing this story.
I don't want to write this story anymore.
Yeah. Like, and that's I love the dynamic between him and Hoffman, because Hoffman's like gung ho, I want to shut this shit down. Like, we got to tell this story. And it's Hoffman that keeps him in it a lot of times, right? That, and then Deep Throat being like, you know, you need to report this shit out. Here's what's going on. But yeah, it's very intriguing to me, Robert Redford, how he's changed. And I don't know if maybe he just isn't in it like he used to be, because he doesn't need to act in order to make his money.
It's hard to really feel that passion if you know where your next meal's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing it because it's what you do, not what you want to do, right? But I don't know. I mean, it's me just making shit up. I'm just saying he's not as good as he used to be. But I think too, I'm a little biased because like The Natural, dude. I'm sure you've seen The Natural.
Oh yeah.
When they, it didn't work. Like, because we didn't have the technology in '84 when The Natural came out to de-age Robert Redford playing a 20-year-old kid, and I'm like, fuck, you look 50. They put that shitty wig on him.
It's like that scene in what is it, Bad Boys?
Yeah.
How old are you? 16. Motherfucker, you look 30.
Yeah. Ludicrous looking motherfucker.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I have the same response. Like, you're 20, my butt.
Yeah, no shit. But and I think that was like where I started to go, this is rough. Like, thankfully they don't do that quite as much as they used to. But like, The Natural was a rough one for me, because I love the movie and the concept, but Robert Redford did not do much for me in that movie. And then he had some great ones in the early 2000s. But outside of that, like, and then I think what really lost me, the movie that finally finished me on Robert Redford as actor, was Indecent Proposal. Like, I was like, I just don't enjoy this performance. Like, I don't buy it, right? Anyway, but that's me and Robert Redford. What about you, buddy?
It's tricky, because I like Robert Redford. I think I like him best when he has someone else to share the screen with. Like two of his better movies, we mentioned them both, is this one and Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid. In this one, he has Dustin Hoffman, albeit a young Dustin Hoffman, but still talented and on his way up. And in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, he's got Paul Newman. And in both cases, even though I think he might be top billed in both, he is more of the side actor in a way. Still leading, but, kind of takes almost a step back and lets the other person thrive. So now he's adding his performance to their performance. And in both of them, there are moments where we see that wooden Robert Redford, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't stick as much, because you have the passionate Paul Newman or the passionate Dustin Hoffman to kind of fill in. And, he kind of it's more like a half a step back, right? To where he adds value to the performance through his own talent and skill, but he doesn't have to carry it on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Versus in something like The Natural, like you said, it has its rough spots, because it's that quiet, almost reserved Robert Redford, and it doesn't always work. So that is my kind of thing with Robert Redford. I still like watching his movies. He's a very attractive man.
Sure.
And it's but it's one of those things where I'm like, I really like this guy, but I don't know why, because or
Yeah.
I like him because other people make me like him.
Sure.
Um,
Or the movies, the stories that he's in
Yeah.
are great, right? Like, it's a good point that you make, and the more you're sitting here talking about it, the more I start thinking about the movies that he's in that I love, even the more recent stuff. Like, so when I think about my favorite Robert Redford movies, like Out of Africa, absolutely ridiculous, but he had Meryl Streep.
mm-hmm.
I also think about The Last Castle, but he had a huge cast with him on that one. James Gandolfini, Mark Ruffalo, Delroy Lindo. I also think of in the newer ones, Spy Game, but he had Brad Pitt. So it's like now you're starting. You've cleared some vision for me, buddy. Like,
Oh, thank
I
goodness.
I
Happy to help.
like this fucker when he's got a great someone with him that carries his ass, and all he has to do is be there
Almost
to lay
comic
down some
relief
Robert
side, yeah.
Redfordisms, right? Yeah.
Because he does best when he's, I hate saying it this way because, I just said I like his movies, but he does best when he doesn't have to say a whole lot and he just responds, right? He doesn't necessarily initiate the conversation, but he responds back to it. I would say maybe reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah.
Doesn't change that I like his movie still, but
sure. Well, I mean, there's no denying the man knows how to pick movies. Like, he knows how to pick what movies to be in, because he's been in some outrageously good movies. I mean, even I make fun of him because of like Captain America Winter Soldier, but it's arguably one of the better MCU films ever made, and he's in it. So the guy knows how to pick films. It was never something that I thought of, that point that you made, that he's best when he's sharing top billing. Even though he may be the guy, what they used to sell the movie, he's not the guy when it comes to acting. Because, I mean, you could go back to like all the way back, because you talked about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where he's with Paul Newman. The same could be said for The Sting. The two, because The Sting's a fabulous movie, but it's fucking Paul Newman again. And Paul Newman, no matter what Paul Newman does, that guy steals the screen. He stole the fucking screen from goddamn Tom Hanks, or Tom Cruise, which not a lot of people can do.
No.
So that tells you about Paul Newman. And he did it twice.
Which is even more impressive.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I'm gonna have to fucking rethink all of my favorite Robert Redford movies now, because I don't think I recognize the fact that he's at his best when someone else is carrying his ass. Interesting. Well done, sir.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for.
Now I got to rewatch some movies that I didn't think I'd ever rewatch.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I think to kind of close this off, because at the ultimate end of the day, this is like the backdrop to this story, is fucking Tricky Dick.
Oh my gosh. Worst goddamn president we've ever had. I don't care which side of the aisle you fall on. This dude, and here's the thing, Watergate isn't even the worst thing he did.
Fuck no. It's mild.
Yeah, it's the last thing he did.
Fuck.
Yeah, no. And here's the stupid part. Now, I wish they would have said this in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's Nixon resigned. He resigned because he didn't want to get impeached and pulled up in front of court.
Yeah, because this was not the worst thing he did.
No.
And everything else would have gotten pulled out if he'd actually gotten impeached.
And then here's how you can tell just how corrupt Washington is. He was pardoned a month later by Gerald Ford, his vice president.
Of course he was. Because again,
they're all on the same side. They're all dirty.
Yeah, and if one of them goes down, the whole fucking system gets burned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, my biggest beef with Nixon is the gold standard, because he ripped us off of that. And
sure.
Now we're on a stupid fiat dollar.
We're on a fake dollar.
Yeah. But
imaginary money.
And it's crazy because you still have people who want to defend him because they affiliate with the same party. They're like, I'm a good Republican. I like Nixon. So much so that it shows up in Sweet Home Alabama by Leonard Skinner.
Yep.
I mean, I love the song, but every time I hear the, Watergate does not bother me, does your conscience bother you?
Yeah.
It's like you're missing the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point is, doesn't matter that he's a Republican. What matters is he was actively smearing his political opponent to stay in office.
Yep.
Planting bugs on everybody. I mean, that's bad. That's illegal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Not to
so,
mention it wasn't for a good purpose. It was simply so he could keep his job.
yeah. And imagine if I did that.
Yeah.
Right? To keep my job, I was keeping tabs on all my coworkers and, listening in on their conversations and their phone calls so that I could always keep the edge. I'd be fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, Nixon, terrible.
Well, and here's the thing that blows my look. I have not been a fan of any president for a very, very long time, even ones that were around before I was alive, such as Nixon. But I think about like some of the more modern things, the things that we get pissed about, right? So like because arguably one of the better, this is such a shitty thing for me. Like it's hard for me to say without it sounding like I'm saying that fucking Clinton was a great president. But when I think about the last dozen presidents, he was probably one of the better ones. If not, I mean, he's near the top of the list as far as what he did for the country, as far as its stability and its level of competence, right? I hate to say it, but he was pretty good. But this man got in trouble for having an affair to the point that he was impeached for having an affair. And as in the words of a used to be popular stand-up comedian, let me get this straight. I can get fired for getting a blowjob. Well, God damn it, I quit. What the fuck? Like, let's think about that for a second. Nixon was bugging people. He was fucking using the information on those bugs to defame, to slander, to put people in a terrible position so that he could stay as president in the midst of the re-election campaign. Dude had an affair, right? And I don't know Hillary Clinton, but 90% of fucking 90% of people have some level of an affair throughout their life. Like that's just the truth. I think it's actually closer to 80, but the point is affairs happen. And we got more up in arms about this man getting head in the Oval Office than we did about this guy literally breaking the law. There is no law that says Clinton can't get head in the Oval Office. Is it appropriate? Probably not. Was it a good choice? Not so much. Is it against the law? Nope. No. Nixon broke so many fucking laws it was ridiculous, and we were like, that's okay.
Yeah, he's Nick.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Alec this time. We're in trouble, dude.
Well, I'll take over for you then. Yeah. I look at presidents and whether they were good or not by if someone tried to shoot them or shot them.
That's fair.
Because look at it, right? So here's the thing. So I believe wholeheartedly that Washington is corrupt to its bones.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And have all of these presidents who have one of the best, if not the best, security details in the world. The ones who are going against the grain in Washington usually get shot. So even though I don't agree with all his policies, I look at Reagan, right? Reagan was shot because he wasn't following the status quo. Then he shapened up and went the way that he was supposed to.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like there's a pattern here, right? You have people's security details who fall apart and all these things. And it's like, oh, geez, I wonder why that happened. But instead, we're stuck with Nixon for nearly his entire term. Or, we're stuck with, again, Donald Trump for an entire 4 years. Or we're stuck with, we're stuck with these terrible, terrible presidents for the entirety of their term. 8 years, 4 years, whatever it happens to be. Versus the presidents who get shot.
It's fair. It's fair.
And yet at the same time, we're too busy fighting over, oh, Trump was great, Obama was great, Clinton was great. You know, all these people, I hate Reagan, I hate Nixon. Not missing the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it drives me nuts. But yeah, at the same time, it goes to your point. Like, we're so focused on, I mean, the little things is the best way to put it, rather than caring about the fact that we had a sitting president who broke the law.
Yeah. And was like caught.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even like it was proven that this man broke the law. At least one. And by the fact that he resigned to protect the fact that of what others he broke. Yeah. And we still have people going, wow, Nixon wasn't that bad. Fuck off.
But they say Nixon wasn't that bad, then they follow that up with Clinton was worse, or Obama was way worse than Nixon.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that it's the identity politics, the divisiveness, that you can't just admit that, oh, hey, you know, I'm a conservative, I lean right. Nixon was an asshole.
Yeah.
There you go. That's all you gotta say.
Yep.
Instead of, yeah, Nixon was bad, but so and so was even worse. Or, you know, it would be, you know, Nixon was bad, but Teddy Kennedy, who he bugged, and, you know, that he would have been even worse as president. So you're just sitting here going, oh my gosh.
It's terrible, dude. Well, and that's the part that like frustrates me the most, is it's like, look, they're all bad because they're all politicians, dude. And it's, some of them do good things, but it's all still, like you said, I think it's all scripted. Like, I think they all get together and here's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's because it's, I mean, the funny thing to me is you see them like battling, right? When they're doing their campaigning and everything like this. I mean, West Virginia is never as popular as it is between June and November of an election year. And they're battling. And they serve their time, you know, as president, whatever. And then they're buddy.
Oh,
they're
fucking A, they're running
out. They're just chilling, you know, and it's almost like, okay, I'll use this example. You have Bush and then Obama, right? Obama went in and pretty much dismantled everything Bush did. And then they buddy afterwards.
Well, they're running they're running like a non-profit together.
And it's like, oh my gosh, how can you guys be so blind?
Yeah, it's fucking silly shit.
Yeah, it's just an act, just a play.
Oh, for sure. It's all just because we're dumb. Is what we're fucking morons.
We care more about what's popular on TikTok, what Budweiser is doing in their marketing campaigns.
No shit.
What's happening?
No shit. It's so dumb. Yeah, don't even get me started on that shit. Fuck. Buy a case of Bud Light and shoot it with a shotgun. You still fucking bought it, you moron.
You're missing the point.
You do realize that they fucking made money on that shit that you just didn't drink. Fucking drink your Bud Light, bitch. Fucking quit being an idiot. So stupid. Fucking dumb as balls. Anyway, it's because we're stupid, but it's indicative. Like, right, we buy a case of fucking Bud Light to shoot it to prove a point. It did not fucking hurt Anheuser-Busch in the least. And then even worse, like, these morons are like, oh, I'm going to switch to Bush. Oh my God, it's made by the fucking same company. Or I'm going to start being fancy and drink Stella Artois. It's the fucking same company. Jesus Christ. It just fucking kills me because we're dumb. We're fucking dumb as a box of rocks. But then we act like
we know everything.
No, fucking kills me. Just fucking dude got a blowjob and he's the worst president ever. Fuck off.
Second one to be impeached.
I know. Fucking so dumb. I fucking can't handle it. I can't handle it. It's just like people should be bowing down for this motherfucker. He's the fucking president of the United States. Everybody should give this man a blowjob. Like, what the fuck is like, seriously. In an elevator and be looking at him like, Mr. President, you look sad. I will jiggle your balls, my friend. Like, come on, dude. It's yeah, and I'm stealing all this from a comedian, but like it's great because like it makes sense too because you think about it, it's like this is the man that like what do you do for a living, right? And he asks the crowd, and he's like, "Well, I sell fishing equipment, dude. On a shitty day, you teach a man to fish, and he pokes his fucking eye out. This is the president on a shitty day at his job. Fucking everybody dies. Like it's you know what I mean." How are we going to be mad at this dude for getting some love in the Oval Office? Like, I get it. Don't cheat on your wife. Call your wife. She'll give you a blowjob in the Oval Office. But maybe she wouldn't. That could be the problem. Who knows? I just think it's so dumb how up in arms. And I was a kid at the time. Like, I was barely a fucking teenager when all of that shit was going down. And I'm like, and I remember the outrage. But then I think about the shit that some of our presidents have done since then. And I'm like, everybody's like, it's okay. I'm like, wait, what? Anyway.
Yeah, there's no kind of standardized across the board. This is this.
Yeah.
I have my own problems with Clinton because he got rid of our grain storage, but that's
sure.
neither here nor there.
I mean, they've all done some really shitty things.
Again, based on the standard.
Yeah. Grain storage, unnecessary wars, fucking tanking the economy over and over again. I mean, how do we at least Clinton fucking grew the economy to like an all-time high. But I mean, you could also say, yeah, I won't even go there. That's beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but we could do a whole episode just on our political thought, but then we really probably would disappear.
Yeah.
And I reiterate, if I disappear in the next few weeks, I did not plan this, fuckers. Okay, let's rate this movie. I'll go first. Look, it's a great movie. It's old. I will say it's slow as fuck. This is not like an exciting movie. In fact, we did not invite Mattson to rate this movie because it
would have been a 0.
Yeah, he would have been really mad at us because this movie is slow. It's very character driven. It tells a story that happened, and it tells it from a side that, unless you read the articles or read their book, you just don't know, right? How difficult it was to tell this story and the problems that they went through to get it out. The fact that they had to rely on someone that called himself Deep Throat, that we still don't truly, I mean, we know who it was now, but I mean, it was like 40 years, 30 years before we found out who this was, right? And that's crazy to me, how frightened the person would have to be to keep themselves that in the dark when something illegal is happening in the highest office of our country. Anyway, but overall, I enjoy the shit out of this movie because I like good acting and I like a good story. And no matter how slow it was, it is very intriguing. The only thing I think this suffers from is the fact that it is such a true story that they're held within the bounds of what's happening. And while it's really interesting to see it, like, I think it would serve better as a documentary, which they've done, because I'd go into this thinking, man, it would be fun to have this be like an actual thriller. Like, these guys are afraid for their lives, and I'm sure at some point they were truly, but they can't portray that in the same way in this type of a film. So with that said, I'm going to give this a 4 because I really do feel like it's a great movie with a great story and phenomenal acting, and very well done considering how true the story was. And it's really not like oh shit, everybody was gonna die type story, right? Like, but it was really fun to hear and watch, and it was good to revisit something I haven't watched in years. So giving it a 4. I would definitely watch this movie, and it'll be a while probably because it is a little slow and it is long. It's long for how slow it is. So what about you, Alec?
Yeah, kind of the same boat. It is a grind. Like, I don't want nobody coming after us saying, you guys said this was a good movie and I fell asleep. Like, go in prepared. It is slow. Like JJ said, it is all character driven. There's no car chases, nothing like that. No explosions happening. It's very slow, very methodical, very thought out. And even the humor that is there is very subtle humor. So you have to pay attention to understand what is going on, which I think they did a phenomenal job with, because this story at this time, because this movie came out in 76, right? Watergate was
76.
Watergate was 72. So this is still extremely fresh in everybody's mind who's going through it. So it's not kind of a story that you'd expect them to poke fun of or over dramatized in any way because it's still extremely fresh, and they're in practice just putting the facts of the story out. So it's like watching a 2-hour, 30-minute newspaper. And I love it. I love it. I do. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I will watch it again. Kind of same as JJ. It's not something you throw on as background noise or watch every weekend. It's something that I think should be watched by every single journalist every year, or at least when you start your job, to show you what journalism is supposed to look like. But yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5, and I'll watch this again. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, especially from like the being careful because like how people word things, like that whole situation with the one guy, Hugh Sloan, where he says something but they interpreted it wrong. Come to find out, dude wasn't even like the way it was worded, but it got him off his back. So anyway, it's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that journalists watch it, and I'm sure they do, but they obviously don't learn from it.
No.
Oh boy. Well, it's been a fun movie. Looking forward to the rest of the classics this month. We got some interesting movies coming, so looking forward to it. But until then, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to. Thank you for tuning in to our review of All the President's Men. This is a favorite of mine. Yes, I am biased. No, I will not apologize. I'm glad we are trying some new things and getting a whole month of some major classics out. Special thanks to our current patron, Roland Emmerich, or whatever you change your name to, Charles, in the time that we recorded this to the time it's been released. Special thanks to our current I messed it up.
It's all good.
Oh, Charles. Yeah, you suck. Something about Matson. So thanks, Charles, for making those selections. You picked some great ones. With these new themes that we are trying out, Patreon is definitely the place to be, guys. Pick the movies that we highlight, whether it's classics like the month of June, or I believe we have a guilty pleasure movie month coming up shortly. I am excited for what we have going on, and it's happening all on Patreon, so be sure to check us out there. Alternatively, you can find us wherever podcasts can be found, including Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Ghana. Leave us a review or a comment, and let us know if our verdict matches with yours. With that, I will send it back to the Caliph of Clout, the great Bambino, JJ.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. Yeah, and I will say one more time, because third time's a charm. I am not leaving anywhere. Shit, I love it. But as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We will catch you on the next one.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out, maybe forever.
Whoa!